In this section, we're going to start creating the player node. We're going to start off and discuss all the functions for the player. We're then going to create a new node for the player. Then, we're going to make sure to add each necessary node for the player's functions. Now let's go ahead and jump right in. This here is going to represent each node we're going to add to the player. Starting off with the player's body, we're going to create it from adding a bunch of different animated sprite 2Ds. These are going to consist of an animation of the player walking, idle position, jumping, and getting hurt. The next node we're going to add is going to be a camera 2D. We're going to make sure to enable camera 2D smooth movement so that the camera follows around the player. Next up, we're going to add a couple different collision shapes and area 2Ds. The collision shapes will be responsible for giving the player a body, so they'll rest on any static bodies and of course not be able to walk through any. The area 2Ds will give the player a hitbox and also give them the ability to hurt enemies in specific areas. The next node we're going to create is going to be a timer. Now this timer is going to be responsible for the player cooldown when they get hurt. The final node is going to be the node that holds all the different sound effects for the player jumping, powering up, and getting hurt. Alright, let's go ahead and get started creating the player. So we're going to start off creating the player in our first level scene. We're going to be doing this specifically to scale things correctly. Eventually we'll turn the player into their own scene, but for now let's go ahead, open up scenes, click on level 1, zoom in a bit to the starting block, which is going to be right over here. Then we're going to go ahead, create that new node for the player. Let's right click, add child node, and we're simply going to select a character body 2D for the main node of the player. Let's go ahead, we're going to give it a name of lowercase player. We're also going to make sure to add the group tag on it as well, so select it, go all the way to the right to node, add a new tag here. Let's just call it simply player, all lowercase, just like the name. And then just make sure it's checked here. You can also double check to make sure it's attached by highlighting over here on the box. Looks good. Let's save that change. Now let's go ahead and start off with the first node inside the player. Let's right click, add child node. It's going to be a simple node 2D. We're going to call this effects. Now this effect is going to be basically darkening the background screen of the player completely black, just showcasing the player in the center. This is going to make it look really nice when we get a game over. So let's go ahead, right click, add child node. We're going to use a color rect for the background. This is just an easy node to use to go ahead and darken out the background just like that. You can make this extend a little bit farther than the background if you want to. It's not going to be visible to the player, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm just going to keep that just like this. Then we're going to set the default color of this simply to a invisible all the way with an A value of 0. So it'll look just like this. Now, of course, we need the ability to change this into a darkened color and make it visible. And we can simply do that by right-clicking on effects. We can go ahead and we're going to add an animation player. We're going to create a new animation. And we're going to go ahead and just call this end. All right. Now for end, we're going to go ahead. We're going to save the color, making it darken out. So let's select it. Let's go ahead. First off, key down the value here at the beginning. Click create. Then we want to slowly make it visible after 1 second. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and move this up here. I'm going to go ahead, select it. And I'm going to go ahead, darken it out just like that. Now one thing to make sure is that we are not repeating this. We just want it to go instantly, just like that. Make sure this is not selected or it'll go ahead and loop. Now to make sure though the original default is set, you can go ahead, select reset, and go ahead, hit play, just make sure it doesn't visible, which it isn't, which is great. Looks good there. Let's go ahead now, create another node. Now we can start creating the body of the player. Let's right click on the player node. Let's go ahead, add another node 2D. Let's change this simply to body. And as mentioned earlier, to actually show the body, we're going to use some animated sprite 2Ds. So let's right click, add child node. We'll add the first one here first. So animated sprite 2D. Or it's sprite animated. There we go. Yep, animated sprite 2D. Add that in there. Let's go ahead now. Make sure you're selecting it. It's going to be looking for a specific texture. And of course the sprite frames. Let's here go to sprite frames. Currently it's set to empty. Go ahead, make it select a new one. Just like that. Alright, so our default, that's going to be like our idle position. Let's go ahead and rename that idle. Then we can simply go ahead, select this grid here. Let's go into our art. Let's go into the Kenny New Platform Pack. Let's select sprites. Let's go to characters, default. And here we can either select them individually here. Now this way might take longer. So what I would do instead is simply go all the way back to the sprite sheets and then go ahead and select the default character sheet. So we have default enemies and default characters. Here we go. Now what we can do is slice this correctly. Let's go ahead and do 64. We might need to go smaller. Let's do 64. If it's still too small, let's go ahead and do 128. And then 128 here as well for size. Now we can go ahead and select the ones we want. I want the idle position to simply be this little green one here. Go ahead, add frames. Then there you go. You can see our idle position is just like that. Let's go ahead and take the actual player itself though, and I'm going to move it right over here so it's like it's standing on the ground. All right. So currently we have idle. We're going to need some other ones. Let's go ahead and create another one. Let's call this one walking. This one's going to be active when they're actually moving throughout the game. So let's go ahead, open up the grid again, select the default character sheet. It should stay the same with the 28 and 28. Now for the walking, let's go ahead and select the ones we want to use. I'm going to go ahead and do this one here and then this one. Let's add those. Make sure you don't have the original selected. You should only have 1 and 0. Let's see what this looks like. If you want to see it in action, just simply hit the play button, and there you go. Now, if you want to make it go faster or slower, you can simply adjust the FPS. I'm going to leave it the same for now, though. We can always adjust it later. But so far, I like that for the walking. All right, let's do the next one. So we have idle, we have walking. Now we need to do the jumping, when they're jumping up, and then when they're falling down. So we can go ahead. I'm going to go back to idle. Let's add a new one. Let's call this jump up. Or better yet, instead of jump up, we could call it in air up. Then let's go ahead, add the same sprite sheet. Let's go ahead, use the one we want to use. I think this one looks the best for it. Let's go ahead, use that one there. Then when they're jumping up in the air, it'll look like this. Then we need another one for when they go down. So let's go ahead, add another one. Let's rename it in air down. Let's go ahead, add a new grid, select it. Then let's go ahead and use the one we want to use for going down. And I think it would look pretty good if we do this one. Again, you can use whichever one you want, but that one looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to keep it. Add frames. So there we go. We have jumping up, and then we have in air down, walking, idle. Now we could also go ahead and do one for actually getting a game over. So let's do that. Let's add one more. Let's call this game over. Let's go ahead, add the sprite sheet. And then the game over one, I'm going to use this one here because it has a sad face and looks like it got knocked back. So let's go ahead, keep that there, add that, and there we go. Looks good, I like it. All right, so now we just need these same animations, but for the power up one, okay? So we have animated sprite 2D. Now let's go ahead and just Control D and do animated sprite 2D, power up. For the power up one, we need to make this unique so we don't change the other one. Let's go to the animation, right click, make unique. Then we can go ahead and switch these out. Let's start with the idle one. So go ahead, go to grid, Sprite Sheets, turn off this one here, but go ahead and select the other idle. I'm going to use this one as the idle, which I think is this one for the standing and idle. Go ahead and remove the current one, so select it and hit delete. Then you want to go ahead and do the other ones. In air down, let's go ahead, switch that out with the correct one. So in air down is going to be this one. Make sure you only have that one selected. Go ahead, select this one, remove it. In air up, let's change this one out. Deselect the current one if it's there. If it's not, that's okay. Use the up one. Get rid of the current one. Now for the walking, let's go ahead, add the correct ones we need. Let's use this one and then this one. Remove the current ones. Test it out. Looks nice, I like it. Double check we got them all. We also need to add the game over one. And I think it's this one. Make sure to remove the original. Remove that one. Double check them again. Overall, I think I like it. Go ahead now and currently disable the power up one, because again, this one will only turn on when we're powered up. To make sure it's setting at the default though, go ahead, select Animated Sprite 2D and just select idle. Now we do need one more thing we're going to add in the body, and that's going to be the player flashing when they get hit. Now there's a very simple way we can do that. All we got to do is we got to go ahead, right click on Animated Sprite 2D, add child node, add a color rect, and we're just going to go ahead and spread this across the current player sprite. Then we're going to select the main node, Animated Sprite 2D. We're going to go to Visibility, and Clip Children, we're going to say Clip and Draw. Then what we're going to do is we're going to add an Animated Sprite 2D in the body, or Animated Player. Then we're going to go ahead and rename this as Animation Player Hurt, or Hurting, even better. For hurting, we're going to have two different animations. We're going to have the idle one, and then we're also going to have the hurting one. For the idle one, I'm simply going to go ahead and select our color rect we have, and I'm simply going to make it invisible. Then what we're going to do is, of course, make the hurting one. So let's go ahead, animation, call it hurting. Then we're going to simply go ahead, change this to white, and make it visible. So let's go ahead, save that value. We're also going to go ahead to 0.2. I'm going to go ahead, make it like a red, make it a little less, like that. About halfway. I'll save that number, 135. Check mark it there. Then we're going to go to 0.4. Back to white. Let's go ahead. Back to white. Save that value. And then we're going to go back to red. Or better yet, you could just keep it here. And instead of that, we'll just go ahead and repeat it. So in the code, we'll actually go ahead in there and limit this. But for now, I think we'll keep it like this. Just make sure you cut it off, though, at that 0.4. So currently change that 1.0 to a 0.4. And again, we'll code it so it goes a little bit longer than this. But overall, I do like it like that. If you want to make it faster, you totally can. But I think this looks pretty good. Let's go ahead, pause that. Let's close that there, save what you got so far. Now that we got the base of the player complete, we can go ahead and create the player as their own scene. So let's go ahead. Before we do that though, we'll make sure that we set the default here to reset. There we go. Let's select the player. Let's right click. Let's go ahead, save branch as scene. Make sure we save this in the components. Save that. Nice. Save it again. And just so we don't forget down the road, let's go ahead and drag and drop in the player component into each level. So let's go into level 2. Locate the spot we want to drop the player right over here. Go to components and simply drag and drop the player.tcsn right into the level 2. and then just adjust where they're standing, like right about here. Save that change, close up the map. Let's go into level 3 now. Again, zoom in where you want to drop the player. I'm going to go ahead, drag and drop them onto level 3 node. Simply move them right about here. Save that change. Now we can go ahead and open up the player scene itself. I'm going to close out the levels real quick. Select into the player scene. Close up the animation. All right. Let's close up the things we don't need so far. Now the next node we're going to create is going to house all the different area 2Ds. So let's go ahead and right click, add child node, and we're going to call this areas, but we'll use a node 2D for this. All right, for areas, we're going to add a bunch of area 2Ds in there. Let's go ahead, right click, add child node, area 2D. First one will be the actual body of the player, so basically like their hitbox. So we go ahead, area 2D, and we can just call this something simple like hitbox. Let's give it a collision shape. Right click, add child node, collision shape. Give it a new shape of, let's do a capsule, and just stretch it out about where you want the hitbox for the player to be. You can always adjust it down the road. I think this will look pretty good. Let's move it about here. It's a little big, I think. Let's go ahead, shrink it a bit. Overall though, not bad, maybe a little bigger. There we go. All right, so that's gonna be the hitbox of the player. So anything that bumps into it that's an enemy, this area will hurt it, okay? Now, one thing I like to do with the hitbox is change it into a different color compared to the other ones so we can see it a little better. I'm just gonna make the debug color to something like a red. All right, let's go ahead, next up, let's right click, add child node, another area 2D. And let's go ahead, and we're gonna call this feet. So area 2D feet. This will be our feet area where we can go ahead and jump on enemies. Let's add another area or collision shape. Let's go ahead, give it a nice box rectangle shape. I'm gonna move this about here and then here. I'm not gonna make it too thin, but just enough to actually be the length of the leg, so maybe about there. And then about there. Looks pretty good to me, I like it. We also need to go ahead and give this a tag, so I'm gonna go ahead, go to node, groups, add a new group tag, and I'm simply gonna call it just feet, all lowercase. There we go. So if any area of an enemy gets hit by this, it should hurt them, okay? And we'll add that logic in the code. Let's do the next one. That's going to be for the actual head, so we can break things when we jump into them. Let's go ahead, add another area 2D. Area 2D, head. That'll be the name. Then if you want to go ahead, we could simply just duplicate the current collision we have down here and drag and drop it into the feet or the head one. I'm just going to move it up a bit. I'm not going to change it, but I'm going to put it right about there. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this one a new group tag. Let's call this just head. Looks good. All right, those are going to be all the areas. Now we still need an actual body for the player. That's easy enough though. I'm just going to add that in real quick. Right click on player, add collision, shape 2D. Then same thing, we could add a simple capsule shape, and honestly, instead of creating a new one, I'm just going to copy this one and then shrink it a bit. So let's go into the hitbox, duplicate the current one we have, drag and drop it onto the collision shape. And you know what, instead of that, let's just move it above, delete the one we have there, get rid of the 2 at the end, and leave as is. Now, of course, we could change the color just so we can see things a little better. I'm going to go into Inspector, change this to like a blue, or better yet, even a green. But we do have to shrink it if you remember, so let's go ahead, use the pointer tool, and just simply shrink it a little bit less. Now if it is moving with the other one, as you can see, that's because we never made it unique. So Control Z until you go back, go ahead, right click on the shape and make unique, or of course it's going to change both and we won't be able to tell the difference. I'm also going to go ahead and make this one green, and then let's simply shrink it a bit, about there, and a little bit on the bottom there. Again, we can always adjust this if we want to, but I think it'll look pretty good just like this. Alright, let's continue on. Next thing we can add is going to be the actual camera. So the reason we're going to add the camera into the player is because there's a really cool built-in feature that will smoothly follow the player as they move along in the world. Let's right click on player, add child node, let's add a camera 2D. If you zoom out, you'll see the box of the camera 2D. Now in these types of games, it's really important to place this correctly. A lot of times, it's more visually appealing if you go ahead and move it up just a bit above the player. Again, if you don't like this style, you don't have to do it, but I think it looks pretty cool with the kinds of games we make. Let's go ahead, do that there. Now we need to add the actual following ability, which is called position smoothing. Position smoothing will go ahead and make the camera slowly follow the player. If you want to increase the speed, you can do right here. With this, currently it's set to 5.0, which I'm going to keep at. But if you want to make it go faster or slower, you just have to adjust that there. But with that, it'll look really cool once we get the player moving around, which will go, of course, and position smooth the camera following the actual player. Now, next up, we're going to go ahead. We're going to add something called a raycast 2D. Now the raycast 2D is needed to help us make sure when we can actually move around and when we can jump and play certain animations. Now normally you don't need this, but I found it better to use a raycast to tell whether or not we're on the ground. We will still use the built-in way to do it with Godot, but overall the raycast just kind of helps it determine exactly where we are. So let's go ahead and right click, add child node. We're going to add the raycast 2D. Then we're going to simply go ahead and adjust where this is. I'm going to put this kind of where the actual feet of our player is. I found it best to just move it down just a bit to about here, okay? Now again, you'll see this in action once we get the script down. This is truly just going to help us out with determining whether or not the ground is below us, all right? But all you got to do is just simply move it down just a bit. We can keep everything else the same. Just make sure it looks like mine here. All right, almost done. Now we just need to go ahead and create a timer. This is going to be the timer that goes off once our player is hit by an enemy. Let's right click, add child node, go ahead, timer. And I'm going to give it a name, timer, capital H, hurting. And then for this timer, eventually we'll attach a signal, but we're going to go ahead, select it. We're going to make it a one shot and set it to 1.5. Now we just need one more node, which is going to be the sound effects node for the player. The sound effects for specifically when the player jumps, collects things, and of course gets a game over. So let's right click on the player node, add another node 2D to hold all the sounds. We're just going to go ahead, call this sounds. Then we just need to drag and drop in each sound effect we want to use. And we're going to specifically use an audio stream player. So let's right click, add child node, audio, stream player 2D. Then we just need to drag and drop in each sound. And we're going to have one for the coin collecting, the gem collecting, which is basically going to be the power up, the hurting, the jump, and whether or not we bump into an enemy. So let's go ahead, change the name of this one first. Let's call this coin. Or if better yet, I would just do something like SFX and then capital C coin. Then we can go ahead, locate the coin sound effect we want to use, which will actually be inside of our art assets. Can you use platformer pack, locate sounds, and then just go ahead, drag and drop in the coin onto there. You should see it there just like that. Let's go ahead, duplicate this, Control D. Next one, this is going to be the gem sound. Let's go ahead, do capital G, gem. Let me double check the sound I used for this one. I think I used, let's see, the gem one. If we have a gem one, yes we do, perfect. Let's drag and drop that in. Let's go ahead, Control D. Next up, this is going to be our hurting sound. Let's go ahead, capital H, hurt. Now for the hurting sound, let me double check the one I used. Looks like I used the hurt OG, which is this one. Drag and drop. Go ahead, Control D. Next up, we're going to do the jump. I'm guessing we just used the jump one, so let's just use that one. Locate jump, which is the regular one right here. Drag and drop it onto the jump. Then we just need the last one, which is going to be the bump. Let's go ahead, Control D. Change this to capital B, bump. Let me double check what I used for bump. For bump, looks like I used, where is it? Hurt. Should be the game over sound, if there's there. Nope, gem, soin, disappear. We'll just use disappear. We can always go ahead and change it, but for now I think that'll be okay. But so far we have every single node we're going to need for our player. In the next section, we'll go ahead and start creating the script so we can actually make the player move around, initiate the sounds, and everything else we want the player to do. Let's save what we got so far.